only I knew I couldn't be a father. But when my wife told me she was pregnant for the third time, something inside me went completely silent. Some truths don't explode. They just sit there, quietly waiting for the right moment to ruin you. And when they finally do, you almost feel relieved. My name is Ethan. I'm 38 years old. And this is the story of how one truth I hid to protect my marriage became the very thing that destroyed it. It's strange, you know? How one sentence from a doctor can change the entire rhythm of your life. I still remember sitting in that cold office, the air thick with disinfectant and bad news. He looked at me with that rehearsed softness doctors use when they've said it too many times. Ethan, I'm sorry. You'll never be able to have biological children. The words didn't hit me all at once. They kind of echoed. I nodded, smiled, even said the usual, "It's okay, thank you, I understand." But I didn't. Not really. For weeks after that, I felt like I was living inside someone else's body. I'd wake up, brush my teeth, go to work, make dinner, but everything felt fake. Like I was pretending to be a man who still had a future. Hey viewers, before we move on, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button if you want to hear more stories like this one. When I told my wife Claire, I left out the part about never. I said the doctor thought I might have issues that it could be fixed. She smiled, brushed her hand through my hair, and said, "Maybe you're just stressed. Let's not overthink it, okay?" I wanted to believe her so badly. She had that kind of smile that made you think everything was fixable. And for a while, I convinced myself it was. We'd been married 4 years at the time. We were still paying off the mortgage, still figuring out how to cook something edible together. Our biggest fight back then was over who left the bathroom light on. Life was small, but good. And then one evening, Claire came home shaking, half laughing, half crying. I thought she'd hit the car or something. But then she held up a little white stick with 2 pink lines. "Ethan," she said, voice trembling, "I'm pregnant." I remember standing there, feeling the air leave my lungs. She was glowing, absolutely glowing, and I wanted to be happy. God, I really did. But the words "only I knew I couldn't be a father" burned behind my eyes. Still, I hugged her, smiled for her, played my part. Because what was I supposed to say? That it was impossible? That our baby couldn't be mine? So I convinced myself it was a miracle. That maybe the doctor was wrong. Maybe this was fate. Maybe love found a way. When our son, Oliver, was born 9 months later, I cried like a child. Not because I knew he was mine, but because I wanted him to be. He was perfect. Tiny fingers, loud lungs, my favorite shade of brown in his eyes. I remember whispering to him, "I don't care how you got here. You're mine. You'll always be mine." And for a while, that was enough. 2 years passed. We moved into a bigger house. I got a promotion, and life felt stable again. Until one night, Claire came home with that same trembling smile. I didn't even need to see the test. I already knew. "Ethan," she said softly, "we're having another baby." My stomach dropped. Lightning doesn't strike twice. Miracles don't repeat themselves. I tried to smile, but my lips felt wrong, stiff. This time, I didn't cry. This time, I stared at her a little too long, and she looked away a little too fast. The next few months were quiet, too quiet. I started noticing the small things. Her new phone password, late nights at work, perfume that wasn't hers. I'd catch her texting in the hallway, and when I'd walk in, she'd lock her screen. Every time, she had an excuse ready, like she practiced it. And maybe she had. When our second child was born, I held him in the hospital room, and something inside me went cold. I looked at his face, and I didn't feel the same ache I felt with Oliver. I just felt tired. Still, I smiled for the pictures. I told myself to shut up, to stop being paranoid, because if I said it out loud, it would make it real. But then, 3 years later, Claire told me she was pregnant again, and that was the moment something inside me snapped. This wasn't fate. It wasn't God giving me a second chance. It was betrayal, and this time, I wasn't going to hide from it. This time, I was going to find out the truth, no matter how much it hurt. Because when you've been lied to long enough, the truth starts to sound like mercy. So I smiled at her and said, "That's amazing news, Claire." But in my head, I was already planning how to end the lie once and for all. It's strange how silence becomes your best friend when you're hiding a truth that could destroy you. After that doctor's appointment, I started avoiding mirrors. Every time I looked at myself, I saw a liar. And yet, I told myself this is love. This is what love demands, sometimes sacrifice, pretending, blind faith. A few months after our wedding, Emma told me she was late. I remember the exact words she said, half excited, half nervous. "Liam, I think I might be pregnant." For a second, everything around me froze. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. Every cell in my body screamed impossible. But on my face, I smiled. "Oh wow," I said. That's amazing, babe." My throat burned as I said it, but she didn't notice. She jumped into my arms, crying, saying it was a miracle, that maybe this was God's way of proving doctors wrong. And in that moment, I let myself believe her. Because believing her was easier than facing the truth. Weeks passed. I watched her belly grow, watched her post pictures, decorate a nursery, choose names. Everyone congratulated us. My mom cried tears of joy, and I just stood there, rehearsing my smile every morning before leaving the house. Sometimes I'd sit alone in the baby's room at night, running my hand on the tiny clothes, whispering to myself, maybe I was misdiagnosed. Maybe it's possible. But when our son, Noah, was born, the truth hit me again. He didn't look like me, not even a little. He had light brown eyes, hers, and a face that looked foreign. But still, I told myself, it's fine, he's mine. He has to be mine. Because if I didn't believe that, I would break. I threw myself into work, tried to drown the doubts. But every time she smiled at me, I saw something behind her eyes, something she tried to hide. A flicker of guilt, or maybe fear. I never asked. I didn't want to hear the answer. 2 years later, she said the same words again. Liam, I'm pregnant. And this time, I didn't even try to smile. The room went quiet. I could feel my chest tighten, my hands start to shake. She watched me closely, waiting for the joy that never came. And when I didn't speak, she filled the silence herself. It's okay if you're surprised, she said softly. We didn't plan this one either, but maybe it's another miracle. Another miracle. That word made me want to laugh, not because it was funny, but because of how broken it sounded coming from her lips. I excused myself, said I needed air, and stepped outside. I remember standing on the porch, looking up at the sky, whispering, how many miracles does one man get before he starts asking questions? After that second pregnancy announcement, something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was more like the sound of glass cracking somewhere deep in my chest. You don't hear it clearly at first, but you know it's there, spreading. I tried to stay normal. I told her I was happy, that I couldn't wait to be a dad again. But every night, after she fell asleep, I'd sit in the living room, staring at nothing. Questions kept circling my head like vultures. What if it's not mine? What if it never was? And then came the darker one. What if she knows that I know, and she's waiting for me to break? One night, after she went to bed early, I found her phone sitting on the couch. I don't know what possessed me, maybe pain, maybe instinct, but I opened it. Her messages were clean, too clean, almost like someone had scrubbed them all, except one. A single chat buried under a fake name S. Nothing romantic, nothing obvious, just short messages. But one line made my heart stop. Don't worry, he still doesn't know. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I went to work and sat in my car for almost an hour, just staring at my reflection in the windshield. And I thought, what if this is all my fault? What if I created this mess by staying silent in the first place? I should have told her the truth years ago, that I couldn't be a father, that any child she brought into this world couldn't be mine. But I was too afraid of losing her, so instead, I lost myself. Weeks passed, her belly grew again. The second child, Mia, was born. Everyone said she looked exactly like her mom. No one ever mentioned me. I held her in my arms, and instead of joy, I felt guilt, because even as I whispered her name, I knew she wasn't mine. And yet, I loved her. Maybe that's what hurt the most. After Mia's birth, things changed. Emma became distant, always on her phone, always distracted. When I asked, she'd snap at me. You're imagining things. You've changed, Liam. And maybe I had. I started seeing patterns. Calls at odd hours. A perfume I didn't recognize on her clothes. Excuses that didn't make sense. I decided to get a DNA test quietly, carefully. I took a strand of Noah's hair, one of Mia's, and sent them to a private lab under a fake name. The day the results came back, I couldn't open the email. I stared at the screen for hours, fingers trembling, afraid of what I already knew. When I finally clicked it, the words burned themselves into my mind. Probability of paternity, 0%. Both of them. Neither of my children were biologically mine. I sat there, frozen, my breath stuck in my throat. It felt like my entire world had been built on sand, and someone had just washed it all away. I wanted to scream, to confront her, to break something, but I didn't. I just sat there, silent, staring at the wall. As the realization sank in, I wasn't a father. I was a placeholder. Days turned into weeks. I barely spoke to her. She noticed, of course. What's wrong with you lately? She asked one night. You barely talk. You barely look at me. I looked at her, really looked, and all I saw was a stranger wearing the face of the woman I once loved. I'm just tired, I said quietly. And then, a month later, she said those words again. The same words that once made me smile. Liam, I'm pregnant. For the third time. That's when I realized she wasn't just lying. She was building a life on my silence. And I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. When she told me she was pregnant for the third time, something in me finally died, and something else woke up. Not anger, not hatred. Clarity. I remember standing there, listening to her talk about how unexpected it was again, and I realized this wasn't a mistake. This was a pattern, a story she was writing, using me as the quiet fool in the background. So I smiled, a small, calm smile that made her think I believed her again. Wow, I said. Another miracle, huh? Inside, I was already done. That night, while she slept, I opened my laptop and started collecting everything. Phone bills, text backups, old emails, photos, bank statements, every little breadcrumb that could tell me the story she never would. It's amazing how much truth hides in plain sight. Hidden names, recurring numbers, locations that didn't match her excuses. One name kept appearing: Ethan, a coworker, the same as from her messages. The man who, apparently, could give her what I never could. I didn't confront her right away. No shouting, no dramatic scene. I just watched, listened, waited. I recorded calls, tracked her car once, took photos not because I wanted revenge, but because I needed proof. Proof for myself, proof that I wasn't crazy. Weeks later, when she said she was going to her mom's house for the weekend, I followed her. She didn't go to her mom's. She drove to a small house on the other side of town, and when I saw him open the door and kiss her, everything inside me went completely still. No pain, no rage, just silence. I turned around and left before they even saw me. I didn't need to see more. I had enough. The next few weeks, I played my part, smiled when she smiled, listened to her stories, helped her with groceries, dinners, family events like nothing had changed. Because the truth is, nothing had. She was still lying, and I was still pretending. But now, I was pretending for a reason. I spoke to a lawyer quietly, explaining everything. He listened, then said something I'll never forget. Don't confront her yet. The calm ones win. So I waited. Every day, I added another piece to my collection of evidence. DNA results, photos, texts, her fake receipts. It was like building a case, brick by brick, against the person I once thought was my forever. When the time came, I printed everything. Neat, organized, labeled. I placed it all in a brown envelope and left it on the kitchen table before I left for work. At noon, she called. Her voice was shaking. Liam, what is this? What did you do? I didn't answer. I let her call again and again. By the fifth call, I finally picked up. It's everything you lied about, I said quietly, and everything you thought I'd never find out. There was silence, then a soft sob. Please, Liam, I can explain. I closed my eyes and said, don't, I already know. She cried harder, begging me to come home, to talk, but I didn't, because there was nothing left to talk about. That evening, I walked in, calm as ever. She was sitting at the table, the envelope open, her face pale. When she saw me, she stood up, eyes red. Liam, please. I raised a hand. Don't. You lied to me 3 times. You looked me in the eye and built our life on something that never existed. She shook her head, tears spilling. I was scared. I thought you'd leave me. I looked at her for a long time before answering. I already did. You just didn't notice. I walked past her, into our bedroom, and started packing a small suitcase. No yelling, no drama, just the sound of a zipper closing the quiet end of a chapter. As I left, she grabbed my arm. Liam, what about the kids? She whispered. I turned to her. I'll always care for them, but I can't keep pretending to be their father. They deserve the truth, and so do I. Then I left. No backward glance, no last words, just silence. The same silence that had started it all. And for the first time in years, that silence felt peaceful. It's been almost a year since I walked out of that house. Sometimes, I still wake up expecting to hear little feet running down the hallway, or her humming in the kitchen, but then reality catches up and it's quiet again. The kind of quiet that doesn't hurt anymore. I moved to a smaller place. Nothing fancy, just peaceful. There's a small balcony where I drink my coffee every morning and watch the sun crawl up between the buildings. It's strange how something so ordinary can feel like freedom. She tried to reach out a few times. Calls, messages, emails that started with please and ended with I'm sorry. I never replied, not because I hated her, but because I finally learned that forgiveness doesn't always mean communication. Sometimes, it just means letting go. From what I've heard through mutual friends, things didn't go well for her. Ethan, the man she risked everything for, left a few months after I did. Apparently, he didn't want to be a father either. Ironic, isn't it? She's been struggling, trying to hold everything together: the house, the kids, her image, and every now and then, I think about her. Not with anger, not even with pity. Just a quiet acceptance that some people destroy the very thing that love them most. As for the kids, Noah and Mia, I send birthday gifts through a family friend. Books, clothes, small things. I don't want to confuse them, but I also can't disappear completely. I may not be their biological father, but for a few years, I was the only one who ever tried to be. That has to count for something. Sometimes, people ask me if I'd ever fall in love again, if I'd ever trust someone the same way. And I tell them the truth maybe someday, but not today. Because right now, I'm still learning how to be my own person again, how to breathe without guilt, how to smile without pretending. There's one moment I'll never forget a few months ago. I found an old photo on my phone. It was the four of us. She was holding Noah. I had my arm around her, and Mia was barely a month old. We looked happy, painfully happy. And for a second, I almost deleted it. But then I didn't. Because that photo isn't just a reminder of betrayal. It's proof that I tried. Proof that, even knowing what I know now, I still gave everything I had to love that woman and those children. And that is something no one can take away from me. So yeah, maybe I'll never be a father in the way the world defines it. But I was something else. I was the man who loved when it made no sense to, who stayed when he should have run, who left only when there was nothing left to save. And now, when I stand on that balcony, coffee in hand, feeling the morning wind brush my face, I smile. Because for the first time in my life, the silence finally belongs to me. What do you think about this story? Let me know in the comments. And if you felt something while listening, drop a like and subscribe for more real stories that remind us how truth, even when it hurts, can still set us free.